excavating the work you do. But thank you for joining us for this panel. Delighted to introduce our 4 panelists today. So we'll first hear from Dr. Liam Frink, an anthropology professor like me. But Dr. Frink can give you some perspective on how to get started in your program from the standpoint of having been a faculty member here for about a decade, and believe it or not, he got a PhD too, right? So how did that work, Dr. Frink?
Yeah,
talk about what was it like the first day, the first semester? You know, we've all, in other words, he, like others, have been through that process and successfully navigated it. So he'll start things off with about a 10-minute overview of some pointers, and then we'll turn it over to each of our other 3 panelists who will build on some of his comments. Dr. Kate Korgan, you may know as a sociology professor as well as graduate school dean, can give you both the dean's eye view as well as the sociology prof eye view. Nancy Fowley is here in the library, as you heard. She's joined UNLV just over a year ago. Is that right? So you'll no doubt be enjoying tremendously the resources she's helping put in your hands or online in front of your eyes and so forth during your research trajectories. And then we have Dr. Mandy Williams, who in 2011 earned her PhD here. So she has gone through the UNLV graduate trajectory successfully and is now lab manager in Brian Hedlund's lab in the School of Life Sciences. She's published quite a bit. So I was wondering about, as I was taking my dogs for a walk this morning, stepping on the soils and the desert, what am I doing to the side? So Dr. Williams would tell me not to do that, probably. But anyway, you can ask her about that, or you can ask her about how she successfully started and then eventually completed her PhD program here. So with that, I'll turn it over to Dr. Frink, and then we'll enjoy hearing from all our panelists.
Thanks, Dr. Frink. And thank you for putting this together, Dr. Frink. It's really great. And Becky out there, and Sharon Young as well, has been instrumental. As Dr. Gray said, I'm a professor in the Department of Anthropology. I got my PhD in 2003, University of Wisconsin in Madison. And so it remains fresh in my mind. I was thinking, I was walking up here, I've long been interested in kind of graduate training, because when I was a graduate I noticed what was going on, right, with my training and what I was getting, what I wasn't. My first, and I think this speaks to this first, can I, ooh, look at that, it works. Expectations of yourself in graduate school, I think that's really important. I think when I was a graduate student, I had an interesting experience. My first advisor that I had, I don't know if this should be on film, was booted out of the university for sexual harassment. So he wasn't a very good example of an advisor. And the next advisor I had was a super example of an advisor. So it's really interesting, like I really saw many of the pitfalls of being a graduate student, the things that were successful, and I paid attention. And I think it's really important that we have these kind of workshops and discussions to help you navigate it, because, well, I'll get to the expectations of your chair and committee, but I think it's really important for you not to be passive. This is your career. You're investing your time, you're investing your resources, your families are investing their resources into you getting your career going and doing what you need to do. So you need to be really clear about what you want to do with your career. Why are you in graduate school? I remember when I put together my proposal for graduate school, the advice was, well, if you're not sure what you're going to do, just say you are. Right? And that does, some of us come in, we're really sure, we know what we want to do, we're very focused, and some of us come in and we're, you know, we kind of have to feel through it a little bit and figure out what's going on. But you really, taking a passive approach is not very good. Expecting us to be your parents, we're not your parents, you're advisors. This is your career. So that's my #1 kind of idea, is be very active and be very engaged in your department, right? That's really important. It's important for us to see you. It's important for us. I think that's part of, I think Dr. Korgan will talk a little bit about learning your own PR. That's really important, like how you present yourself, right? She's going to talk, you know, the 3-minute talk of what you do. That's happened to me before. I meet President Snyder and boom, I have to say what I do. And if I go, right, like he's not very impressed, right? So right away, just really how you present yourself, be very professional, right? And just really have, and that, doing that really gets you to where you are understanding what you're doing. So everything that you do goes towards what you're doing in your graduate career. Be aware of all the opportunities that are in your graduate program. The one thing, actually 2 things, well, the PR I talked about. Oh, be confident. I think this is especially important for women. I don't see it as much in guys. I think guys kind of come into graduate school and they're a little bit more, they've had different messages, let's be honest, especially if you're in the sciences, but also in the humanities. And so you don't want to be cocky, but you do want to be confident. And you're not looking for a parent. You are a professional now, and to have that attitude. The other thing is to write every day. There is no reason not to write on your own work every day. Probably every one of you has to write a prospectus at one point, right, for your proposal, for your degree. Start writing on it now, write every day. And I can send out a thing, Tara Gray has a great thing on the attributes of writing every day. I think sometimes as an undergraduate, especially, we're used to binge writing, where you kind of, get a chunk of time. What you're going to find in graduate school, you don't get that. You don't get those times, and it's not really effective. So if you write every day, that works really, really well. I think that's a good strategy. And all of your classes, if you can, everything should go toward your work. What we have to deal with, especially if you're going into an academic world, there's a lot of things that draw our attention away from our work, and you really do want to hone that skill of, I write in the morning from 7 o'clock to 8 o'clock. Nothing stops me from doing that. And that's how you get your work done. And there's a lot of other stuff that we do that's really interesting and rewarding, but if you don't get your own writing done, you're not going to finish. And that's what you need to do, is to get your own writing done. Expectations of your graduate committee, and especially of your advisor. I think it's really important just overall to remember that there are power differentials. I think that's really important. I really saw that in my experience in graduate training. I know it's very difficult to say no as a graduate student. It's just that simple. But it really is a good word to learn. It really is. And you should not be taking out my laundry. And if there is anything that it seems off, it probably is. And your department should offer you some kind of recourse for talking to someone or something. So if you feel something is off, then you need to reach out. And that is one thing, and I might jump a little bit to the department. The department we just started 2 years ago this is what we're starting in the university, should be offering you mentoring, right? In the program we have now, when our new graduates, students come in, they're onboarded, we send them a package of materials like the faculty now get at UNLV, telling them, some certain things about UNLV, what they should expect, they get a little lanyard, things like that. But also when they're here, they get assigned a mentor, and they get assigned someone that they can talk to about what's going on, if they have questions about moving here, whatever it is. So you might want to expect your department to start a mentoring program. They're very simple to start, and if you want a model, you can talk to Caitlin DiBenedetto, who does ours in the Department of Anthropology, and I'm the kind of overseer of it, whatever. I really kind of stay out of it. It's really a student-run thing, but I think it's been very helpful to the students. I really think they like it. So if there is something, questions of sorts, they have someone they can go to there's some discretion there. So expectations of your chair. I think there's more discussion. The Chronicle just had an article about this, about not all of you are going to go into academics. Although I would say if anyone's telling you, oh, there's no jobs in academia, I heard that back, when I was in graduate school, and guess what? I have a great job. So don't let anyone dissuade you from your dream, period. If you want to go for it, you go for it. Don't let anyone stop you, okay? But you also have to have plan B. And plan B is very good to do. Or plan B, but your plan might not be academics. So I'm an academic, so it's a little more challenging for me to understand kind of what you need. So what you need to do with your advisor is, okay, I'm in graduate school now. This is where I want to be. This is my dream job right here, right? And to start those discussions early, what do I need to do to get to that dream job, right? For an academic, there's all sorts of training that you need, networking, all sorts of things that I can help you with, right? I can connect you with things, do things like that. But if you're going in another kind of trajectory that I'm not so familiar with, then I'm still responsible to help you get there. And so we can have those discussions early. And then that demands of you that you possess your career. This is my career. I'm not waiting for my advisor to get me a job or to hook me up with things, right? But you're collaborating with that advisor, which is really, really super important to get that discussion going. And I like the exit strategies, that we should be helping you all along the way, understand what in your career is required. The final one, the expectations of the department. We should be providing you lots of opportunities to meet other graduate students, and especially the graduate students, and I would actually add UNLV on here, and the graduate program that we have here, the graduate college, is outstanding, offering these kind of opportunities where you can network with one another, right? It's very important, even if you go into faculty or whatever your job is, when you start, you feel very isolated. Oh gosh, is this what it is? And it's really important to reach out to your colleagues that are not in your area. Number one, because it's intellectually interesting, right? You get kind of these fresh ideas, but also there's checks and balances then. You can see what's going on in other places. Very, very important. So we should be providing the format for these relationships that you can have. And we should be providing you orientation. Your department should have some orientation going on for your department and the expectations. I think we need to expect that out of our departments, right? And that might be, the expectations might start with your voices, right? With you being conscious of that. Whether it's with your organizations, however you can try and do it. And we should be offering you the classes that you need, okay? And if that's not happening, then you guys need to speak up. But it's our responsibility to offer those classes that you need to get through. And I think, let's see. Oh, and we should expect out of UNLV and the departments and everybody that you have a supportive experience, that it doesn't feel like hazing. Now, if you're stressed out, welcome. That's grad school, that's what Dr. Korgan and I were just talking about, okay? But that's not hazing. And that's not trying to push someone out, okay? You should expect a safe, supportive environment, all right? Especially for women and underrepresented students, okay? And if that's not happening, you should expect us to have somewhere where we can go to talk about that. And hopefully someone on the panel will have maybe more information about that for you. And I'll let the next person go.
Is that me? Hi, everybody. Nice to see you all. I think I have met or seen many of you before. So as you heard, I'm a sociology professor, and I've been in the graduate college now for 8 years in various roles. And now I'm interim dean of the graduate college, which I've been doing for a year, a little bit more than that. And so in preparation for today, I was thinking about sort of how did I get here, and what would I have wanted to hear when I was starting grad school, right? And so in the process of that, I realized that I never in a million years would have guessed that I'd be here. And by here I mean Nevada, Las Vegas, UNLV, dean of grad college. These were not part of my plan when I was sitting where you were, okay? My plan at the time was, I was passionate about sociology, and I wanted to pursue it. And I sort of had some inclinations towards what I wanted to study and what I was interested in, but really, I wasn't someone who came into grad school saying, these are the exact things I'm going to study, these are the questions I'm going to ask, this is exactly how I will answer them, and this is where I will end up, and it will be Las Vegas, and then I will be dean. Not that, right? So in the course of that, I realized that, I also started thinking about sort of the students that I work with in the graduate college, right? And so I'm going to draw primarily from that experience. And unfortunately, many of the students that I work with in the graduate college come to me or end up working with me because they're in the middle of problems, right? So I spent a tremendous part of my job being a mediator and a problem solver. I think that's really a large part of my role, right? And so in the course of that, when you see all these problems, you start to think about how can we stop these earlier, right? How can we put people on a different path? And sadly, it'll be a path where we won't meet, but that might be a good thing for you, right? And so one of the things I started thinking about is that really old saying, like, everything I needed to know I learned in kindergarten. You've probably heard that. And in some ways, it's really trite and silly. But in other ways, there are some real fundamental gems there that I think at various points in your life are worth revisiting, right? So you're here today because you're smart, you're competent, you're motivated, you're well prepared. Otherwise, you wouldn't have made it into grad school, and otherwise you wouldn't have chosen to come to this workshop today. So you have the building blocks, you have what it takes. But is that enough to guarantee that you're going to end up with a graduate degree and in the dream job that you want? And I would say no. It is enough of a pathway in, But to get you through, you're going to need to do some other things, right? You're going to need to sort of step it up a little bit. And I think if you go back to kindergarten, in some ways there are some basics. And believe it or not, almost everything that ends up on my desk as an appeal or as a hearing or as a student problem are tied to these kinds of things. So that, you know, the sort of kindergarten mantra is share. Right? Share ideas, share resources, you know, don't hug things, play fair, right? Follow the rules. I know it's silly, but it's true. These are all those problems that I see all the time. Don't take things from others, you know? No one's yours, no one's theirs. You're gonna share offices, like little things. Don't steal their books and their pens. They get mad, it becomes a problem. When you make a mistake, because you will, and I do, you say you're sorry. I'm sorry when I make mistakes, I'm sure you're sorry. Tell people you're sorry. Apologies heal lots, really quickly and easily, right? Live balanced. It's very, very hard in graduate school to live balanced. It's hard in anywhere, in any part of your life to live balanced these days. Life moves fast, technology intervenes at every moment of our time in our lives. Find a way to find your balance, and everybody's balance is different. Nap when you need it. Don't get overtired. It makes you grumpy. You can't think straight. You're not, you know, you're not going to be a good teacher. You're not going to be a good scholar. Like, sleep is your friend, but also work really hard, like really hard, because you worked hard to get here. But I always tell people it is not a linear trajectory. When you start grad school, that bar jumps. You make an immediate step up. The expectations went from here to here of you. So when you were outstanding at this level, you have all the tools and building blocks to be outstanding here, but it's not a natural. It's not just the next step. You just don't keep doing what you did at your previous step, whether that was a bachelor's or a master's degree, right? You gotta jump, you gotta kick it up. And part of how you kick it up is, I think, it's back to the same kindergarten thing. You have to dream. You have to figure out where you want to be. You have to wonder about things, you know? I sometimes see grad students get so focused on the details and the schedules that they get so pragmatic that they forget to look around and wonder, right? Wonder at the world, wonder at your discipline. Read an article and go, wow, every once in a while, right? Wonder at your own work. Take care of yourself, right? If you're not healthy, you can't do, do your job as a graduate student well. You're never going to achieve your dreams. Watch out for problems. You know, the kindergarten thing is like look out for cars. But cars are the sort of metaphor for anything, right? And stick together. That's your best defense against the challenges the world will throw at you, right? And if you don't do these things, these very basic things that seem silly, you can't do that next step. You can't do grad school well. You're not going to become the professional that you want to be. So those are sort of the basics. It's good to remind yourself, right? But I had a colleague who just left UNLV for another job in Boston. But my colleague used to deal with a lot of student problems and appeals, and his mantra was, grad school is big kid school, right? So it's not kindergarten. You need all those basics, but it's big kid school. And what he meant by that is something that you just heard from Dr. Frink, and that is you are responsible for yourself. This is not about your parents, your teachers, your mentors, the grad college. We should have told you, we should have anticipated, we should have just known that you wanted to graduate without you submitting that form, right? No one's responsible for you. You are responsible for you here, right? At the undergrad level, if you commit an act of academic dishonesty, and as an undergrad you say, I'm so sorry, I didn't know about plagiarism, I didn't understand the rules of paraphrasing, that's a viable defense in some cases, and will get you off the hook in your first plagiarism charge, right, as an undergraduate. As a graduate student, that will never work. Because at the graduate level, we assume that we admitted you as the professionals that you want to be. This is your job. You are a professional. You must know the rules. You must play by them. You must follow them, right? These are the basics. And then you have to also do all these other things. So at the big kid school, you're in charge of yourself, right? So you get what you put in, and you have to have high expectations of yourself as well as appropriate expectations of others. And I think, Dr. Frink did a great job laying those out. You have to have good expectations of your department and your chair and your mentor and the graduate college, and you need to hold us accountable for the things that we rightfully need to be doing to support you to success. Because our job is to support you to success, right? But it is not the only way you're going to be successful. We're there to help you, not to do all the lifting, right? You have to be responsible for you. So you have to be informed. You have to be proactive. You can't sit back and wait for people to tell you things or give you opportunities or offer things to you, right? So basically I'm saying you have to make this journey your own. And so when I was thinking about my journey, I started thinking about it as an odyssey, right? Like in the Homerian sense, for real. Like it is an odyssey, right? And so an odyssey is an epic journey, right? And this in grad school will be an epic journey for you, right? It will be a journey in terms of who you are as a person, right? It'll be a journey intellectually. If it's not, something's wrong. This should blow your mind. and it should be like incredibly exciting that it's blowing your mind, right? It was obviously a professional epic journey, right? You're going to go from where you are now to becoming an expert who has all of these skills and all of this knowledge and who's pursuing, you know, your dream for how you want to impact the world. That's pretty cool, right? So this is this epic journey. But as with all epic journeys, I get to go to workshops, to ask your mentors, to seek help to develop the skills that you know might be lacking, right? It's okay. Everybody is human. Everybody has failings. Everybody has things to work on. You do too. Figure out what they are. It'll make you better. You'll feel better about yourself. And that little voice that says, everybody else deserves to be here, but I don't. Anybody know that voice? You're all like, I don't know that voice. I bet you do. I've never met an academic who's being honest. Who doesn't, if you get 2 drinks in them, say, I don't feel like I didn't belong. You know? It's a reality. Right? We all have that feeling sometimes, right? And it's okay. And I'm here to just tell you, get used to that voice and then develop other voices in response. So this is your career. Grad school is a job. It's your profession. Hopefully it's also your passion. And so we're here to help you. I wish you all the best. Nancy.
Okay. My name is Nancy Foley. I'm the head of the Library Liaison program here. Library Liaison is kind of a fancy library term. It really is a subject librarian. So we have a slew of subject librarians, and they have usually an additional degree, so an additional degree to our terminal degree of Master's in Library Science. They also could have some prior professional experience related to the subject, or just lots of on-the-job subjects. So they're your point person in the library. Think of them as your personal librarian or your bridge to the resources that we can offer here. What I did do a to-do list for you guys, and it is kind of long, but I made it so that every one on these doesn't take more than 5 or 10 minutes. These are kind of things that I would urge you to do now before you get so involved and overwhelmed with your studies, that if you have these contacts and these services in place, that when you really need to do it, all you need to do is go quickly request an item, send an email to your liaison, and it's already there. You've already established that. So my first and most important is know who your liaison is. How many of you have met your liaison librarian yet? Yeah. So I urge you to do that. I've put some URLs here so you can find out every subject area has a liaison librarian, and it is their job to work with you. It's a huge part of their job. They're evaluated on that. And they can help you with, they can help you with your research. If you're teaching, they can also help you with that, bringing your students into the library for library instruction. We can find resources for you, either if it's purchasing it for you or just finding where we can borrow it for you. There's nothing that they can't do for you, pretty much, research related, of course. You can also make an appointment, and maybe this is the time to do that, to just touch base with them, explain what your research needs are, and then they can be on the lookout too when things come up. And then down the road, if you need, I just have a quick answer, you have that relationship established, and you can just throw them an email and they can get back to you real quickly without having that, well, tell me what your research is, blah, blah, blah. Because that's usually a 1-hour consultation. We have a really nice state-of-the-art room downstairs with plasma screens, dual keyboards, dual mice for those consultations. How many of you have activated your Rebel card barcode in the libraries? A few of you. If you haven't, do that. That's the only way you can access the electronic resources off campus. And again, that takes about 5 minutes. It also is a way for you to renew your books online, so you don't have to come into the library. And you're able to borrow items that we don't have. So again, that takes 5 minutes, and then that's in place for your entire career here. How many of you have a Refworks account? Yeah, that's another thing that you can do that takes about 5 minutes. All our databases have one little quick button where you can just export your citations into Refworks. So it's nice to get started and start collecting those. How about Write and Cite? Do you know what Write and Cite? Write and Cite is a plugin that goes into Microsoft Word. So when you're writing, all you have to do is it accesses all your Refworks citations. So you want an in-text citation, it puts it in there. You want to format your bibliography, another click, it's done. So that's another thing that takes about 5 minutes. We also have workshops on that too. So again, or contact your library liaison. We all know basic Refworks too. Iliad account, that's another way that you can borrow items from libraries that we don't have. So if we don't have everything, we have relationships with all the research libraries in the area, and we can get items for you. Books within 72 hours, electronics, scans of articles or book chapters, again, 24 hours to 36 hours. And again, once you have that account set up, all it is a few clicks, and that even fills in the form for you, so you don't have to worry about writing down the author and title and all that. There's also, once you have your Iliad account, we also have something called document delivery, which is, not a lot of libraries have this, and if they do, they only offer it for faculty. But if you're at home or in your office on campus and you discover something we own in print, if it's an article or a book chapter, we'll scan it for you and send it to you, to your email, so you don't even have to come to the library. So that's a really, really nice service that we have. We also have a bunch of workshops. We're offering about 9 or 10 that all count towards your graduate certificate in research. We just had one yesterday on locating grant funding. We have one coming up on using our primary resources. Also, how to write a literature review, and some on Refworks too, beginning and advanced. The last thing I'll touch on is we have subject guides. I don't know if any of you have ever come across the subject guides. They tend to be a little bit hidden, but the Library Liaison has actually pulled together all the information. Some of it is the databases that we subscribe to. Others are web sources related to a discipline. So we subscribe to a lot of obscure databases that you might not come across unless you're really hunting and pecking on our website. And in these subject guides, they're all there. And it's just a click where you can find that information. So that's the long to-do list. But I think if you went through all this back to back, it wouldn't take you less than an hour.
Well, terrific. So, Dr. Williams, do you want to?
Oh, sure. Sorry, I guess that's going to be a minute, but yeah. So thank you all for coming and giving me the opportunity to speak. I too kind of have been thinking about what I would have liked to have known when I started grad school. I came up with a really long list, so you'll have to bear with me here. Just to give you a little background, I did my bachelor's degree in soil science at the University of Missouri, and then I came to Las Vegas to also study soils, and I thought I was going to get a master's, and I got like a year into my project, and my advisor told me my project was too big, and she said, you've either got to cut it down or switch to a PhD, and so I said, oh, I'll just get a PhD instead, and that ended up being like a much bigger thing than I realized. I think ultimately it was really good, but maybe you can kind of think about my experiences in that frame. So ultimately, grad school was probably the hardest thing I've ever done, and maybe that means that my life's been pretty easy. I'm not sure. I also think it's probably the most rewarding thing like I've ever done as a person, or at least I think that most days. Some days, I kind of question that, but I think the thing you kind of have to realize is that it's going to test all the relationships in your life as well, and that was something that I didn't realize. So, whether it's boyfriend or girlfriend, or parents or spouse or children, like, it's going to test those relationships in a big way. And so I think it's important that as you're starting, have conversations with those people that you love and care about, and let them know the challenges you're going to face, and make sure that they're on board. And even if they're not on board, at least you've done your part to kind of have that conversation. I remember, maybe a year or two into grad school, my husband would come to me and say, you seem so stressed out, you're just not as happy as you used to be. And my response was always, you don't know what you're talking about, I'm totally happy. And, it wasn't until I was out of grad school, and even though grad school for me was an amazing experience, that I realized, the subtle pressure that I was continually feeling. So just realize that that's a normal part of grad school, and it's not that it's not worth it, it's just part of it, okay? It's just how it is. So things that I wish I would have known, time management is probably the biggest skill, and I know you keep hearing it, but I'm going to hammer on it too. Grad school does not come to the people who are the smartest. That may work for undergrad, but that is not at all the case for grad school. It comes to the people who are the most dedicated and most passionate and just willing to put in the time and to work hard, and that's it. It's more like a million baby steps and a marathon rather than a sprint. Just realize, you know, as we keep saying, you've got to be proactive. You're going to have to initiate, lead, and execute a project and many sub-projects, so just get used to it. You've got to balance a lot of different things, you know, your coursework, your graduate assistant responsibilities, your own research, and then life as well. And you should just, like she said, count on it taking 2 times as long as you expect. Not your grad program necessarily, but any task. Any task that you do, count on any task taking twice as long as you expect, sometimes 10 times as long. And there are some tasks that just may not work out. And that's not an excuse to be complacent. It's just be realistic about how long things are going to take. And get a calendar. Develop goals and sub-goals and tasks and talk to your advisor about them and get their feedback on it, because they know how long it's probably going to take you, maybe even more than you do. You've got to learn how to do things on the fly, and that's so much of grad school, teaching yourself things or finding people who can help you, and that means that maybe you've got to ask your cohort, your advisor. Sometimes that means you've got to look outside your own bubble. Like with my degree and my project was very interdisciplinary, and I would just knock on doors, you know. As long as you're gracious and polite and passionate about what you want to do, good people will help you. And those people who don't want to help you, then you just ignore them and find somebody who will. Screw them. Sorry.
That's great advice.
I mean, you know, not everyone is helpful. Your advisor is probably the most important relationship you're going to have in your graduate program. Maybe not in your life, but certainly your graduate program. They can make or break your project. And so, you know, choose your advisor wisely. People change advisors, and that's okay. The earlier the better, definitely. And, you know, for me, my advisor is an amazing person. She's the best mentor I've ever had in my life, and now she's still a dear friend and a mentor. But you can also seek out mentors beyond your advisor, whether it's your committee, people outside of academia. Seek those people out, but do choose wisely. I think you should choose people who will both challenge and support you to an equal degree. So you don't want them to sugarcoat things or to blow smoke up your tailpipe, but you also don't want them to bring you down. And so, you know, just look for qualities that are important to you in your mentors. Find a project that you love and that fits your specific brand of creativity and intellect. At some point, you're going to get frustrated with grad school, and I can tell you from experience, having a project around financial and time constraints. Then you've got to interpret data, which requires creativity. And then you've got to spin the story for the greatest impact. And at all levels, I mean, I know this sounds like we're just making things up, and it's absolutely not, but research is a creative process, so recognize that in the beginning. Then you've got to figure out a way to maximize your own productivity and creativity. I know that I only have like 2 or 3 hours of good brain time. And what I mean by that is that like I only have 2 or 3 hours of time during the day when I can really synthesize new ideas and write well. And that doesn't mean that I'm worthless the rest of the day, but that just means that those are the times that I have to, if I'm going to be writing, write at those times. But I think you can also try to seek out activities that really support your creativity. So for me, like physical activity and running really fuel my creativity. And I committed like 3 days a week to running out at Red Rock. And that was like a 2.5-hour commitment with driving and then running and everything. But I found that I came up with some of the best ideas and creative solutions for my research when I was out running, because I could just kind of, you know, meditate on whatever it was. And then I also ultimately was less stressed out because I got some physical exercise. So figure out what activities help you to be more creative and make time for those, and you'll be a happier person because of it. graduate school will fundamentally change who you are as a person. And this is one thing like I did not expect at all. You know, with undergrad, it's like you change and you grow and you go through classes, but I don't think it really changed me as a person. Grad school was completely different. I'm not really sure how to articulate this, but things that I know that have changed in myself, it's changed how I view the world and the way I look at challenges that I'm facing in my own life. It's enabled me to manage projects and try to attack goals and look at tasks. And I've been able to tackle challenges that I probably never otherwise would have taken on had I not been in grad school. And it's allowed me to be more confident in trying things on my own and to be independent. And to realize that, you know, if there's something I want to try, ultimately it's me. Like, it's up to me whether or not I'm able to do that. So just kind of be on the lookout for the changes you'll see in yourself, and you might not realize until you're out and done. So another thing that was really tough for me, and I don't think it's this way for everybody, but I've talked to other grad students who have faced this as well. The middle to the end of graduate school can kind of be a dark time. And nobody tells you this. You find yourself in like a little hermit hole because you've got to, at some point you have to become kind of self-involved and you've got to seclude yourself, otherwise you're just never going to finish. And that means that like the darkness starts to set in and you feel like you're not ever going to finish. And it, like, I describe it as this dark cloud. You know, even when I would go out and try to have fun and not think about grad school, it was always in the back of my mind because I wasn't done. And no one was going to finish it except me. And so just realize that it's normal to feel that way, and when the dark times set in, maybe talk to your other grad friends about it. And they may or may not admit to it, and that's fine. If you need to talk to me about it, you can. But just look to the people in your life who support you, and realize that you will finish. If you're committed to finishing, you will finish. It may not happen as quickly as you want, but it will happen. And there's light at the end of the tunnel, I promise. So the last thing is to start with the end in mind. So what do you want to do when you're done? You might not know. Honestly, I don't really know what I want to be when I grow up. I have some ideas, you know, but life is a journey, and once you achieve one goal, you're always kind of thinking about the next thing, right? But it's good to realize that probably not everyone in this room is going to get a tenure track job, and I don't know what your career plans are, but just realize that the job market is tough, and I don't want to discourage anybody, because it's true, if you work hard enough, that you will achieve your goals. But it is good to have a backup plan, and to also recognize that, you know, there are fabulous, brilliant people out there who never get a tenure track job, and it's not because they didn't work hard enough or because they're not smart enough. It's just that to an extent, like, sometimes jobs have to do with luck, and so it's good to be looking outside of academia to think about what other jobs might be out there for you. And when you spend all of these years at whatever point you are in life in academia, you can sort of feel like you don't really have any skills that are applicable to the outside world, and that is absolutely not the case. There are skills that you learn in your master's and PhD program that are extremely applicable to industry, to government and nonprofit sectors, but you've got to figure out a way to sell yourself. And that does not mean selling out, and it does not mean anything negative in any way. It's just you have to know how to highlight your skills in the best way that it's going to appeal to whatever sector you're interested in. And so there's a handout over there that I kind of compiled with some resources for people looking at career opportunities outside of academia. And this is not an exhaustive list, but there's some resources that I've looked at and I thought were kind of helpful. So some things that appeal to me about those resources that will maybe encourage you guys to to look into them, first, they're all extremely positive. So, you know, you can kind of get bitter and feel upset when you've spent all this time going to school and then not having a job, the dream job at the end, or the job you had envisioned for yourself at the end. And these resources are all extremely positive, and they put a positive spin on that transition out of academia. They provide practical tools for you to identify your best and maybe even favorite skills and how to market them to different sectors. So one thing that you'll learn in grad school is that you pick up lots of skills, but they're skills you don't even realize you're gaining. They're all implicit and not explicit. Nobody is going to tell you, you're learning project management now, or you're learning how to train other people, or you're learning public speaking skills. Nobody tells you that. You just figure it out, right? And so sometimes we don't realize we have important skills that not everybody else in the world has. And those are important skills to industry and to the private sector. So if you kind of look at some of those websites, they'll kind of coach you in that way. They'll also provide resources on how to network outside of academia. So I know even though my advisor has done a lot of different things, like her network is limited mainly to people who do research. And it's very possible that your advisor might be in the same boat. And so you're going to have to take an active role in networking. And networking outside of academia is different than networking in academia. And it feels weird and maybe even kind of gross. I'm serious, but you feel like, you know, you're asking people for help unnecessarily. But that's how it works. And so those resources can kind of coach you through that process. They also, those resources tell stories of people who have left academia and have found really rewarding careers, and they challenge the idea that academia is the only career path for people like us. And so it is possible to find a really cool job that does challenge you and that you really enjoy outside of academia. So just, if nothing else, even if you're like, I know I want a tenure track job, maybe just think about something else, because there might be opportunities you haven't even considered. And they also tell stories of people who faced your own feelings of uncertainty, unhappiness, or fear. And at some point you're going to feel all those things in grad school, and you might feel them after grad school. And it's hard to know how to deal with those. And you know, ultimately, I think it's the stories that we tell ourselves that are the most about ourselves, that is. So what you say about yourself to yourself influences your own happiness and your outlook on the future. And so some of these resources not only tell stories of people who've been where you are, but they kind of coach you through the process of re-spinning your own story into one that is of success and a bright outlook. And I think, you know, if you're not able to tell yourself that you are successful even though you're facing challenges, it's hard to convince a potential employer or a potential colleague that you are successful. And so finally, this is my word of advice to you all, is to realize that life isn't a linear process, that, you know, it's okay to make a mistake, and it's even okay to figure out that maybe grad school isn't what you want to do. It's not that you're not willing to work hard, but maybe it's just not your path. And if you figure that out, you haven't lost out on other opportunities. You know, there are plenty of opportunities for you to circle back around and find a path that works for you. And you know, ultimately life is short, and you've got to find something that you love to do and do that thing. And if you figure out that what you're doing isn't what you love, you have the ability to change your trajectory in life at any moment and to find a path towards happiness. So that's my spiel. Thanks. Great.
Well, I want to thank all of our panelists, just terrific, inspired, and also practical perspectives on how to succeed in grad school from this very early stage many of you in the audience find yourselves. So at this point, let's just open it up for Q&A. So you have a chance to tap our panelists' wisdom, as was put, their hindsight can be your foresight. So what are some of the questions you might have now that you'd like to explore with our panelists?
Okay.
Go for it. Go for it.
Okay.
filled out the application online for the graduate certificate and basically emailed it to my 2 people that have to sign it first. But I signed up for classes anyway, for the workshop classes. So do I have to be accepted for the research certificate thing before I can sign up for the classes? Because I did sign up for classes anyway.
Technically, I'll take that one. Yeah, technically, yes.
Please do.
We need to know you're in the CERT program to give you credit for these things, but given that you sent it off to your advisor, you can just see me afterwards and I'll tell you, you can just send us an email.
Okay.
And we'll know to look for your paperwork and to count the ones you've already signed up for. So we can make it work for you. Hi.
I have a question. Hi. It's kind of complicated, but my name's Jack. I'm a mechanical engineering graduate. I've been here 5 years as an undergrad, and I've been receiving a lot of conflicting advice, so this can kind of be just whoever wants to answer. I'm going for a master's right now, but I am pursuing academia. I want to probably be a professor and do research as a focus for my life, because that's what I like. But I've been told going for a doctorate in the same school that you might want to work in, and UNLV is very well known for research, is not a great idea. I've been told that by a lot of people. So I'm trying to figure out, can you go for your doctorate here at UNLV and then maybe even pursue work here afterwards, or should I go to a different school after I get my master's done?
I'll field this. It's Jack.
Yes.
Well, I was told that I went for my bachelor's at UW Wisconsin, and they wanted to keep me, so for my PhD went all the way through. And it's kind of academia's dirty little secret that a lot of people actually do that. They go all the way through. Now, the cautionary tale, though, I think, though, is that I switched disciplines when I was doing it. I went from cultural anthropology to archaeology. So there was a whole group of folks that I hadn't had classes with, and kind of I went in a different direction. So I think what you have to ask is whether there really is new stuff that you can learn. And also, I think it's very, it's kind of great to go to another school to get another perspective, to kind of understand. Probably some of the folks here who got masters elsewhere and our PhD students here, they're going to get a different kind of view of things. So I think you can go either way, and it's ultimately whether they're going to accept you or not too. But I would stay open to going to other schools.
I'll tack on there, I completely agree. Conventional wisdom is you should leave, right? Don't do all of your degrees at the same place because of the diversity of perspectives you'll get from different faculty, different research environments, etc. So that's conventional wisdom. That's in some ways what people would say is the right answer. But like Liam, I had the same experience. I went to the same school.
That's awesome.
Right? And I was like, I can't stay in my faculty. I was switching areas, and I had great faculty, and they were making me an assistant editor of a journal, which is an opportunity I never would have had if I would have switched schools and started in a new program. And so there were lots of compelling reasons to stay, and ultimately I did. But I always felt like I had to do just that little bit more to distinguish myself, so that when I was competing against people who had been at multiple schools, I could say, well, I was at one school, but here are the things that I did that really made it pay off, right? So I would keep yourself open to all opportunities, but if you choose to stay, make sure there's a diversity of experiences. Recognize that you should probably go just a little bit above and beyond in what you do, so that if there are people out there who disagree and think you should have switched schools, you can say, address that with the excellence of your research, or these extra publications, or these extra experiences you had here. So yeah, shop carefully, make good decisions, but I think either path could be yours.
Additional to that, I have a bachelor's degree from Indiana University, and then I decided to change career paths, so I've been here. So I'm in kind of a similar situation as him, where I may have an opportunity just to go through and get my PhD here. Is it true that they just want you to have an experience from another university? I don't plan on staying here forever, so maybe that's different from him. Like, I'm open to moving somewhere else and working. But do they just want you to have an experience from another university, or do they want you to separate your bachelor's and your graduate degrees somehow?
I think it can go either way. I mean, I was the same with Dr. Korgan. There were so many opportunities there for me at Wisconsin, and it was a big enough place, and it made sense to do it. And I don't know any other way. I mean, I don't know if I'm harmed because of that. Intellectually, I hope not. I mean, I've done pretty well with my career. So I don't think it harmed me. It's really, I think, an individual decision. And I had an advisor who wanted to work right, it just worked out. So you have to decide that for yourself, right?
And getting a master's and a doctoral degree at the same institution is not problematic, right? I mean, that's pretty typical. So the only question is, do you have some diversity in there? So,
Although some do speak on that.
Some will say you
The
should.
hardliners will
Yes.
say you do a master's here and then PhD there, but I think that's ridiculous. If you're at a good school that you want to be at.
and I think the times are changing in lots of ways, right? And the nature of academia is changing. And so, yeah.
I was going to say, relating to her first question, will a core class count towards a graduate certificate, like also count towards a graduate certificate?
So you were talking about the research certificate
I was
program.
talking about the
Are you
research.
talking about an academic certificate? So if you're in both the certificate program and the degree program simultaneously, you can share credits between the two if both programs sign off on it. But you have to make sure that you complete that certificate either before your other degree or at the same time. You can't complete the certificate after your degree. But if it's before or at the same time, you can share credits if your faculty sign off on it. I'm just curious how many of you are in master's programs right now? Almost everybody? Couple doctoral? Yeah. Just curious.
What programs are you guys in? Or are you engineering?
I'm also in chemical engineering, but I'm a BS MS, so this is my last semester of my bachelor requirements, but I also have a master's class, and then I had one before.
So you're on that fast track bridge. Good.
Poli-sci.
Where are you?
I'm still exploring. I got my undergrad here and I just came out, so I'm working with my department.
Great.
MED.
Public health. Public health.
Oh, MBA, JD?
And Sharon?
Oh, Anthropology.
Yeah. Sharon is an example of a
Mechanical
stunning
engineering.
graduate
Mechanical
student.
engineering.
Yeah.
Mechanical engineering, very good.
Outstanding. Yeah, and I mean, part of it is if you're funded, funding matters, right? I wouldn't leave funding to go to a place where you don't have funding,
goodness.
right? That's probably obvious, but let's just say it. Funding matters. And not just because it makes it financially viable to be in school, but because it gives you access to projects and faculty and professional experiences that are just so valuable, you know? But, you know, if you have the opportunity to work on a project that with a faculty member where it suits your passion, like if you're working on UAVs with Dr. O, you're not going anywhere, right? I mean, he's one of the nation's leaders in UAVs, and he's here, and he's got funding, and he's paying you. You're not. It doesn't make any sense to go and say, "Well, I've been at UNLV too long. I should probably go." Don't leave, right? So you just have to kind of assess where you are and what the options offer you.
Well, that's kind of a question that I have as far as you brought up funding. I'm a full-time employee in the classified staff and going back to school, and my big dilemma is right now is, am I missing opportunities by not being a graduate student, like a graduate assistantship student? And, you know, obviously there's financial issues and family and all that. So for someone like me that's coming in, I feel like I am kind of financial aid or whatever.
We encourage other departments on campus who have open positions to do two things: to give us the info, and we send it out on Rave. Or we have a GA mailing list. So open your Rebel Mail. We're always amazed at how people, you know, students don't pay attention to their Rebel Mail, and there are gems of goodness in there, along with the junk. You just have to sift. We try to only send useful stuff. But in any case, watch the email because we post things there. And then also career services. We've started suggesting that offices put their open GA positions on career services website. And those are two places to keep an eye out.
Is there an email thing that I have to like subscribe to,
Nope.
or I should be getting them?
Anyhow.
Just open your UNLV today and open your Rave
Yeah.
when those come in your Rebel Mail, and you'll see all
Anything
kinds
from
of.
the grad college.
Yeah.
And I think what was said about the skill sets that we get was so beautifully said. I just thought that was so nice because you're not realizing the skills you're getting, right? And that these skills, they translate to nearly every job. I mean, so kind of your skills that you have, it doesn't matter, you know, whatever it is, if you have these basic suite of skills, you can get into any GA position and be successful.
And it doesn't matter what your research was on.
No,
Like,
no.
Well,
Yeah.
because I have a ton of teaching experience already, like I just got out of teaching, so I'm like, I have that skill set already, so I'm like, dude, I can do this, but there's no opportunities really at this point that I've been able to come across, so.
They're out there.
The other thing is just network around campus. Some of it, I mean, it doesn't make it to the career services or to us if they fill it first. And they fill it first by just knowing people or having word of mouth spread. So network with other people in GPSA, network around campus, go visit the rec center, chat it up with them. Hey, you guys ever heard of GAs? We know they do. You know, make yourself visible.
Or if there's some kind of workshops or something going on, go to those, you know, meet folks. Sorry.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. But there are also competitive fellowships and GAs as well, right? Maybe, can you speak on that a little?
Yeah, December 1st is the deadline for applying for scholarships and fellowships for next academic year, so 15-16 already, right? And so some of those fellowships, I mean, all of the fellowships are great. They're better than GAs insofar as you get paid more money generally, you get the same kind of tuition and benefits package, and you don't have the expectation of having to work 20 hours a week. So you can use that time to still work closely with your mentor. You can still do the research you're pursuing, of course. That's what you're supposed to do. But maybe you can push some of the other stuff out of the way. So I really encourage you to apply for the fellowships. The scholarships generally are supplemental. So, you know, you wouldn't want to give up a GA just because you get a scholarship. They're smaller dollar amounts. But you'd be amazed at how few people actually apply for them. And we give away a lot of money every year. And I'm always, you know, hitting the streets and talking to people to try and find more sources of funding. I mean, there's lots of room to grow there, but it would be great if we had more applicants for the money we do give away. So December 1st is that deadline. And it's all online, relatively easy.
Where can we find that information about the fellowships?
Online, on our website, but I will tell you our website's in the process of being updated. It's like web services is actively changing pages. And so we sent a note out already on Rave to watch for it coming December 1st. So we'll send another one when it's completely live. The actual application to submit opens on October 1st.
So is Rave a separate tab under RevoMail? It all just comes together. Because I guess I'm confused on what you're saying when you say Rave or RevoMail.
No, good question. So Rave goes to your RevoMail.
So okay,
Rave
so
is
it's an automatic thing.
Yeah, Rave is like a compilation, a weekly compilation of information for grad students.
Okay.
I will tell you the grad college is also working on a newsletter that will be starting in, we project January. And the newsletter will come out via email, and it will be on our website, and it'll have, you know, information about all this kinds of stuff, and it'll be a kind of monthly what's going on for the grad community, faculty, staff, students, everybody.
You're still using Apply Yourself for 15-16?
We are.
And you know, the other thing about getting money, there's no, sometimes students will say, oh, I just got a little bit of money. There's no little bit of money, right? Go for whatever money you can get, right? Because money follows money. That's what I was told. You start and you show that you can get money internally, you just keep getting that money. There's no, just like there's no small publication, there's no small amount of money. And then it just seems to kind of accrue as you go. And then you're also learning. Every time you apply for something, you're honing your skills on what you're doing. You're writing about what you're doing. That's the key to applying for things, is you keep writing about what you're doing, and it keeps you going that way.
And you're building your CV.
Absolutely.
Every time you get a scholarship, every time you get a fellowship, every time.
I still remember
You
when
get
I went to
nominated
page
for an
2.
award. It
Remember
goes
that?
on
I
there.
went to page 2 on my CV. I was
Oh,
like,
yeah.
oh my God!
I know. It's true. Someday it'll be more than a page. It might be already for you guys.
Yep.
Yeah. There are other opportunities outside the university as well. Nevada is an EPSCoR state, so we get special funding from the federal government, from the NIH, from NSF, and from NASA. And so definitely check out the Nevada EPSCoR website if you just,
That's good too.
Yes.
yeah, definitely check that out. And then I think NASA's space grant might be a separate
program.
website too. But if
Takes away
you,
a lot of money.
you can just maybe look at their websites from time to time, and they'll have requests for proposals. And so if you're, this is what kind of amazed me, was like, my project didn't always fit the request for proposals, but I ended up getting like 3 different fellowships for my grad program for things that I was like, oh, this doesn't really fit, but I'm just gonna try anyway. You know, I have like kind of this running proposal I can tweak for this opportunity. And honestly, the things that I ended up getting awarded were things that I thought I had no chance at. And it, you know, you never know who's gonna apply or what the other applicants' backgrounds are, and so just try. They'll be surprised.
And if there's money, they need to give it away.
Yep.
So if.
Especially for students.
Yeah, exactly. And so even if it's not a perfect fit, if it's a great proposal,
And if you're a good student.
and if you're a good student, and let me say something about what a good student is. Let me just give you an example.
Yeah.
So we give away some scholarships based just on GPAs, right? So for our international students, we have access awards. And if you're a domestic student, we look at GPA and need, right, as a category. For our international students, we don't know their need because of the FAFSA, so we look at their GPA. And we have X hundred of thousands of dollars, so a couple 100,000, right, that we give away. We can't go below 3.8 because we hit 200 students have above 3.8 on the GPA. So, we thought, we'd say, oh, we'll do a 3.5 cutoff. Forget it. We had to keep going up, up, up. Some years it's 3.9. So at the grad school level, when you're trying to be super competitive, just so you know, people say, well, I've got a 3.2. Well, that's great, and that's nothing to take away from, but it probably doesn't make you competitive for the highest level sort of awards and recognitions, right? At the grad level, we're really talking 3.8, 3.9, 4.0. It's just sort of what's expected.
And you'll get conflicting advice, maybe even from your advisor. I mean, I've heard faculty tell their students your focus should be on your research, and that's true because you're not going to finish if you don't do your research, right? But if your objective is also to get funding, like shooting for a 4.0, even if you're not quite there, may be worth your time if you want to fund a project that's not funded. So,
but if you get a grade that you're disappointed in,
yeah,
what she's referring to is like, nobody looks at your transcript after you get your PhD. If you're out there looking for jobs, it's very uncommon for people to say, what was your GPA? And I want to see your transcript and see where, right?
Because they probably don't care.
Right, at that level,
Or external grants
it's
don't care, NSF doesn't care what your GPA
Right.
is.
much less important. So
So-
GPA diminishes in importance in some arenas, but in the competitive funding arena,
As students.
as
Yes,
students.
So
Internally.
that's
it
the difference.
matters.
There's internal funding, which is UNLV driven, okay? And there's external, which is NIH, NSF, Winter Gren, whatever your thing is. So those are two very different things.
Yep.
It's really important, I think, as a graduate student to start with internal funding. So you can show that you can get money, and then your advisor, your chair should be working with you to seek external funding. I don't know, there's probably not as many opportunities for MA students, to be honest with you, but there probably are opportunities. I know NSF has, I think, some kind of funding for MAs, but I think there are more opportunities for PhD students to seek funding. So that's just kind of the reality of there's fewer and fewer dollars, and more of those dollars are going to PhD students.
On campus and off.
On campus and off.
I'll jump in and plug the library resources for
Yes,
finding grants,
yes.
because we have databases that actually will search grants, and you can actually set up a search and have grants emailed to you on a monthly basis based on your discipline area. And again, that's something that you could contact your liaison librarian and they could walk you through that.
And I also think what you mentioned, fellowships. Does everybody know what a fellowship is? You want to explain what a fellowship is?
Yeah.
I mean, it's different than a
Well,
grant in some ways.
yeah, it is. So fellowships may differ, and you guys can maybe chime in on this, but the fellowships I had, basically I was getting paid to go to school. So they paid for my tuition, for my health insurance, and I got a living stipend in some cases. It may be as much as like $20,000 a year, and for a grad student, like, that's actually a lot of money.
That's a ton.
That's a ton of money. It's less for some, but you have no responsibilities to anybody except your classes and your research. And in my case, because I didn't have that extra 20-hour a week commitment to teaching, I was able to finish without a master's, just a PhD, in just over 4 years. So it makes a huge difference. And to me, it was worth the time applying for them because it saved me lots of time in the end.
And you can be a targeted group like Ford Foundation. They have certain for underrepresented students especially. They do a lot of funding for underrepresented students to give you a leg up, right? And so there are lots of opportunities.
Professional societies have
Oh,
some
yeah,
scholarships,
absolutely.
grants and scholarships.
Sigma
Talk
Chi
to your
and-
talk
yes.
to your advisor about those. McNair, maybe we didn't touch on
Yep.
McNair.
Yep.
McNair, yes.
There. Mm-hmm.
McNair is for underrepresented students and first generation college
Yeah.
students primarily, and they have funding and professional development opportunities.
For first generation being we're the first to go to college, our parents aren't.
Mhm.
Correct, yeah.
Yes.
Exactly.
Which in a sense puts you a bit at a disadvantage, right? Because you don't quite know how to navigate things. It is more challenging when you don't have something drawn. But like my parents they both have masters in education. They had that's the other thing the people who love me have no clue what I've done. Seriously, like you can go PhD, dissertation, I haven't showered in 3 days and there's food on my shirt. They're like, what's wrong with you, right? Like, and they will never, I have come from a very educated family, none of them has a PhD. They do not know what this experience is and they never will, and that's okay. So.
That's why you need good campus networks.
Yes.
That's why your
Yes.
travelers have to come from multiple places,
Yes.
right? The institution, your department, your grad college, all of us who are here, career services, all those different offices on campus, GPSA, your friends and family who will not understand what you do, but they will provide some of that balance, right? And then, of course, you need your close colleagues and choose them wisely, your mentors, your peers.
My thing is that if anyone's negative, get away from them.
Yeah.
Like if they're that little, I remember there was a woman in art, she always liked to corner people. And she'd be, we're not going to get jobs, when do we be, like, ah! And I completely ignored her. I couldn't take it, right? Because it's already hard enough to keep it going, and you can't have those folks that are doing that. You can't. It's too hard. I can't.
There's also that sort of, there are different categories of people in the world, different types of people. There are
Good.
There are different types of graduate students, right? And there's at least one, you can tell I'm going into this joke, there's at least one sort of type of graduate student that probably all of you have met who for them, their grad journey is more about stirring the pot than doing their own stuff.
Yep.
Right? And they're not taking care of the little things or the big things. They may talk like they are, but they're not.
And you're going to have faculty colleagues that are the same.
And they're kind of stirring things up and always trying to focus on other things. Like, doing your work isn't the issue. We have to do this.
Yeah.
Beware, right? They might be fun people. They might be great friends, but try to avoid getting sucked into the whirlwind of drama, just generally, right? I think. Do whatever you want in your private life, although I think that sucks energy too. But I think for grad school, there are these sort of drama centers. And they have a hard time finishing, and the people who get drawn in have a hard time finishing.
And maybe also, get to know the grad students that are a year or two ahead of you that are doing really well.
There you go.
Yes.
Be friends with those people.
Yes.
Yes.
And then turn around and be one of those people.
Yep.
And they're
Yes.
usually really helpful, actually, because
They can give you models of things, right? If you're applying for a GPSA grant, you could say, hey, have you done this before? Can you show me? That's the best thing, when they show you what they've done, and you can say, oh, this is how you do it.
Right. Be gracious, that was great
Oh,
advice.
yeah,
Just be kind
perfect.
and gracious.
Perfect.
And then turn around and give it back. And
Yep.
you'll learn, it'll benefit you. When you give to others, I always think, I didn't mention this, but I should have, and that is become a resource. Like your job as a grad student is to become a resource. Like whatever it is you do well, or whatever, help others and be a departmental resource. That's valuable. That sets you apart from other people, It makes you feel good too, I don't mean that to the detriment of your research, but as a piece of who you are as a professional. And then the other thing that I meant to say and I didn't was social media. We haven't said anything really about it. So it's too late to go back and correct your social media history. But from today forward, you put nothing on social media that you don't want everyone forward to see in your professional life. So you think, oh, it's private in these groups, or I haven't set it this. Or they're always changing those settings. Nothing is private, right? And so, especially if you're going into academia, they're going to Google you. We Google you. That's